Welcome to this invigorating session on 10 ethical issues that most businesses face. Now, nearly every business owner, nearly every manager, nearly every employee has come up at one time or the other against some kind of ethical dilemma. It's very, very common. And ethical dilemmas can come from internal activities, it can come from external operations, it can come from customer interactions, it can come from intra-employee interactions. And I want to discuss with you in this session 10 common business ethics issues that you need to necessarily consider if you are going to build a solid ethical culture in the company in which you're in. The first issue I want to discuss with you is the issue of cutting costs. Now, anytime there's industry pressure, anytime there's environmental pressure, anytime profits wane a bit, there's a massive pressure that's brought to bear on senior management and various local and multinational firms regarding the desire to cut costs. Because when your profits are not rising at the level you want them to rise at, when your revenues are not coming in as thick a stream as you want them to come in, the easiest recourse is to cut costs. Now, it's important to understand that cost cutting can have very serious ramifications on your ability to deliver quality and your ability to even maintain appropriate levels of occupational health and safety within the organization in which you are operating. So forward-looking companies need to strike a balance between cost and quality and safety, because you need to work hard to keep your costs under control, but if you sacrifice your quality, you might also suffer customer attrition. If you satisfy your safety, you might experience employee attrition. In fact, as for safety, if you sacrifice it, you can actually have legal suits coming against you if, for instance, you suffer some major factory accident. It can be very debilitating for your company. So maintaining quality and safety standards during challenging economic times may maybe temporarily damage your bottom line a bit, but medium to long term, it will serve you well. Because sacrificing quality or safety can actually lead to you becoming bankrupt if you don't manage things well. The second ethical dilemma most businesses face sits squarely in the realm of marketing, operations management, customer experience, service quality, service management. The whole issue of over-promising and under-delivering. My goodness, it is a challenge. Because actions indeed do speak louder than words. And my marketing colleagues will tell you that you typically do not have a second chance to make a first impression. And over-promising can be very tempting, especially if you work in a cutthroat business environment, where your competitors are promising the moon and the stars and the rivers and the valleys and the lakes. You find that even though you may not be configured to give the same wild, outlandish promises, because you feel pressure from competitors, you go and say things you cannot realistically deliver upon. So when you come into the organization, frontline people, account managers, relationship managers, salespeople start having this incredible tug of war with the guys in operations, the guys in back office, because they keep telling them, how on earth did you promise 2 days to deliver a $5 million loan facility when you know due diligence alone can take 5 working days? And then the guy says, well, but I have a target and my targets are not being met. So when he told me that other bank can do it in 1 day, I said I can do it in 2. Or the other bank said I can do it in 3 days, I said I can do it in 2. The question is, when you said you could do it in 2, knowing full well that your internal processes demand that you do it in 7, why did you say 2? Please. When you go and create unrealistic expectations, my brother, my sister, my dear listener, those watching me, you damage yourself twice over. Because you don't just lose that prospect or lose that current client. When they decide to administer negative word of mouth in your direction, you can lose 7 others. Because some people would decide based on their perception of you, but will never come to your company. So please, this second ethical dilemma of under-promising and over-delivering, over-promising and under-delivering, let it never characterize your life. The rule of thumb should be under-promise and over-deliver. Never over-promise and under-deliver. Ethical dilemma number 3, controlling the market. I'm sure you've heard about the phenomenon of antitrust laws and companies forming cartels and behaving in ways that leads to the accrual of supernormal profit to them, often to the detriment of customers. So some companies have all these mechanisms they pursue where they do things that gives them a certain monopoly which is illegal. Or in certain cases, they resort to unethical practices towards their competitors in order that they will yank some of the customers of those competitors into their companies. Please. If I've learned anything at all in life, I've learned that it's very dangerous to take shortcuts. And as much as possible, as a company, do not break rules. Because ethical practices can come back and haunt you at the time you least expect. So whilst it is desirable to control the market, it is important to not let this desire to control the market degenerate into an ethical dilemma and lead you to conduct yourself unethically so that eventually you become the loser. Ethical dilemma number 4, coping with bad publicity. Well, every company, every institution at one point or the other can have major organizational struggles that could translate into negative publicity or a negative image for them. Now, it's very important to understand that when bad publicity hits you, sometimes you feel motivated to either lie about the situation or give less than the best facts about the issue you are contending with. Now, if you speak to my colleagues who work in crisis communications and have big public relations firms, they will tell you that whilst it's good to minimize the effects of bad publicity, usually being transparent, being honest, and being accountable will eventually win the day. So, my proposal to you is that transparency, honesty, and accountability are the best antidotes for bad publicity. Next issue I want to discuss is honesty with customers. Several studies have shown that a customer's experience with you at all levels of the organization affects the organization's image and eventually the profitability of the organization. Because, generally speaking, and believe it or not, customers rather have bad news delivered straight up than have businesses who are dodging them, skirting the issue, lying to them, deceiving them. Look, the thing with being dishonest with customers is that at the end of the day, you still get to waste their time. They deliver the double disgrace of not being able to deliver on the initial request, and then it will seem as if you wasted their time. In addition, it can be very problematic for you. Next issue has to do with being honest with employees who are the internal customers of your organization. Now, being honest with employees is actually one of the best ways for the company to encourage them to also be honest with the company and its management. Because sometimes managers come up with this very problematic take it or leave it stance when they are doing restructuring, configuring bonuses, agreeing on incentive schemes. And when you do that with employees, and they find out that you, the CEO, or you, the senior management people, are taking a ridiculous $27,852 US every month, and the guy who works as brand manager is only receiving $272 every month, and that brand manager must bend their back, kill themselves, do everything it takes to meet your asset and liability targets, and give the impression that the bank is going through very difficult times. So nobody can earn beyond $5,000. When you earn $27,000 plus, trust me, you are creating a very dangerous environment, not just for rebellion, but eventually for the conduct of unethical business practices. Because sometimes information asymmetry alone can be the reason why companies will face revolution and revolt. Because employees who do not have access to good information are very dangerous employees. Because sometimes when you lie to employees and you keep deceiving them, they share the bad information around, and then the organizational climate becomes poisoned. Remember that knowledge is power. So empowered employees are happier employees. Empowered employees are more productive employees. And employees who are empowered are usually employees who are not kept in the dark. Let me conclude this particular point by saying that don't listen to me and think by any stretch of the imagination that I am suggesting to you that some information should not be confidential. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that as much as possible, share good information, empower your employees so they can also be loyal to you and deliver excellent service. The next dilemma is being honest with stockholders. They have made investments in the company. They want the company to grow in value. So be realistic with them. If the company is going through a rough patch, acknowledge the challenges you face and explain what you are doing to mitigate these challenges, or to deal with them, or to overcome them, or to surmount them. Lead by example. Be fair, be transparent, be honest. Let your board know what's going on. Let your shareholders know. Let your stockholders know. Don't introduce any subterfuge and deception. It just creates problem for you and your company in the long run. Also, make sure your accounting procedures, your audit procedures are totally on track all the time. So make directors, executive management, make auditing firms, make everybody accountable for the company's accounting processes. Trust me, the bottom line is not always the best indicator of a company's health. And it's not always the best indicator of a company's well-being. We are facing several instances in Africa where some so-called well-performing companies have been caught to be engaging in some of the most fraudulent activities. And some of the levels of fraud that are being discovered are so shocking, because before the fraud was discovered, these companies were winning all the awards in the country and were seen as beacons of organizational excellence. Trust me, if your auditing account is not up and up, it will come back and bite you, and some people might even end up in jail. Next issue to consider is the issue of regulations, how we live by them, how we adhere to them, how we sometimes lobby for regulations to be changed in our favor. It's all good, but make sure you follow regulations. You have a code of ethics. You have issues about how cash should be received, issues about how personal relationships should be entered into or not in the organizational setting. It is totally important that we follow rules. The next ethical dilemma is the issue of contributing to political campaigns. That's a big one. All over the world, people give money to candidates and people support all sorts of political schemes. And it's a very common way for corporations and people to build relationships with elected officials. But please, within the laws of the country you're operating in, and within the laws of political financing, make sure you know the limits on campaign contributions. And you never pressure your employees or other stakeholders to support a candidate or campaign against their wishes. Politics can be very problematic, so you must manage your political campaign issues, political contribution issues in ways that don't constitute very big ethical dilemmas for you as you go forward. For what it's worth, I think astute business people should conduct their businesses in such a way that they don't have such excessive political coloration that if political power changes, the organization goes up in smoke because you are perceived as being party X or party Y. So whilst I would advise you to contribute if you want to, make sure it's done in a very judicious manner, in a way that doesn't create ethical dilemmas for the organization you are leading. Thank you very much for listening. I'll come back to you again very soon on 10 common obstacles to ethical business. Thank you.